Hi, good afternoon, good morning, everybody. Welcome to this session. This is a different session because we are going to make a revolution in this session. So I am Daniela Torres. I am working for ICLEI Europe for several years, and I am super happy here to be with my colleague Yuleni Mana and a wonderful panelist here on site, but also online. And we are going to talk about today about data. And probably you will be asking yourself why we are talking about data in a resilience and climate adaptation forum. So just for your information, since 2020, especially in the last year, the need to talk about data and integrated climate action was one of the key results of EURESFO 2020. Okay, so we decided to work together in order to integrate the concepts of mitigation, adaptation, integrated climate action in order to really drive carbon neutral and resilient cities, which is our goal in the following years. So when we talk about data, we can think that data and information on emissions or data on risk analysis or different sources of data are core in order to make better decision making. Yesterday that we were talking about the plenary, we were saying that data has been there for several years, but are we really using this data? Are we really taking advantage of all the kinds of sources of information and different sources of data for having better decision making? So this is what we are going to discuss today. And it's not going to be me discussing this, it's going to be a wonderful panelist and also several cities in Europe that have been working on using different sources of data for integrated climate action, for mitigation, for adaptation, to better make decisions. Another important thing that we are going to cover today is that we are going to explore a new tool that probably you are not familiar with. We are going to speak about a tool which is called Google Environmental Insight Explorer. So for the ones that were here yesterday in the marketplace, there were some videos there showing what Google EI is. So we are going to have the opportunity today to hear from Google the tool, how the tool works, and also the experience of several cities that have been using in this tool. We've been working in ICLEI in this project for several months, and it's also a pleasure for us to share this tool with all the participants here. So with that said, I just wanted to reflect on one more thing before we start the session, that I think that all of us have information and data everywhere. And I ask yourself, are we really using this data to make our cities better, to make our cities resilient, to make our cities cleaner? So think about it, and we will discuss this now in our session. So for the first part of the session, I have the pleasure to introduce Olger Robrecht, the Director of Sustainable Resources, Climate and Resilience at ICLEI. Olger, can you give us some insight on what has been happening in these last years on data, and also you can share what's coming next, probably.
Well, that is a high expectation. But there is at least one good proof that data works, and this is that we are all here. So we are all here on the same time, in the same room, for the same reason. So we have used data, and we processed it in a way that makes Daniela definitely happy, because we have some people to discuss with. Okay, so, well, the title of the session is The Revolution of Data in Integrated Climate Strategies, and Daniela was challenging us on that one. Honestly, I'm not sure whether we talk about a revolution or an evolution, but this is to be discussed then later on, I suppose. In any ways, climate resilience action depends on scientific evidence. There is no doubt about it. That is very clear, whether we talk climate mitigation, whether we talk climate adaptation, whether we talk climate neutrality, whether we talk climate resilience. And that comes down to data as sort of the basic instrument for it. It's a communication tool that supports and facilitates the development of information. That information should be appropriate, accurate, reliable. And here it comes down to data, definitely. So the EU Green Deal states the need for data-driven approaches. It's a big wheel. And the EU adaptation strategy resonates on that. It promotes smarter adaptation. We have heard that yesterday in the opening panel with Elena Wisner talking about smarter adaptation. So smarter adaptation should be driven by data to improve knowledge, manage uncertainty, to close knowledge gaps that we have. I have many knowledge gaps. I don't know how about you, but definitely for me it would be very helpful. It should help, in any case, to improve the climate risk understanding. It should help decision making in the face of uncertainty and the management and mainstreaming of adaptation and resilience and climate neutrality and many other things. So the EU considers the application of digital tools to be very critical, and here we talk about a digital tool that has a potential, and we want to explore the potential. It should support climate services to all stakeholders. That is many, not just the few of us here in this room, of course. So accurate data, targeted, reliable information, that has always been very critical to us. I don't know, I'm turning 60 not too far away from today, let's put it that way. And in any case, I know that we have been climate blind. We have been also environmentally blind in many of our doings. Actually, yesterday evening I said, I quoted Ilma Repalu that said he was environmental and climate blind in the 70s when he did decision making in the council and committees here in Malmö. And that is true, I think, for all of us, for most of us at least, not for Daniela, for sure. So the question is, can we be less climate blind? Can we support our priority setting? Can we inform our investment decisions by data that is reliable? And that includes that we need, obviously, to have the appropriate monitoring, reporting, and also modeling instruments at hand. That is now interesting. If we, here we have decision makers in the city of Athens. So what are we doing in climate resilience or climate neutrality? We manage. What is management? It's the plan, do, check, and act cycle. If we translate that for a climate neutrality or climate resilience framework, it starts by a baseline review. What is a baseline review? We want to understand. We want to understand climate risk. We want to understand sort of the pressure points. We want to understand the vulnerable spots in the city, and we want to understand sort of our environment that we work in. For all that, we need to have a good deal of data that should be reliable. Then we move forward and we set priorities. So this is a preparation for the decision makers, and we need to give them a reliable set of data and turn that into information that they can digest. So it's not the raw data anymore, but it's processed, manipulated data, put in context for the city that makes it work for the decision makers to understand a quite complex situation. So decision makers in cities are a representative of the society. We have teachers, we have, I don't know, lawyers, we have gardeners, we have anyone. So, and for all these people, we need to present an information base that works for them, not for us. And this is where sort of data turns into information, very importantly, in support of decision making. It does not stop there, because we walk forward and we want to turn that into projects, more data, more information. And to understand if the project works in alignment with our goals is even more complex. And that is sort of the long term that we look at to start a new cycle of management to improve. Continuous improvement is the buzzword for it. All along that way, data is coming into that picture, is the key communication instrument to make that process work in a structured dialogue for all stakeholders in transparent, open, and informed way. So, my outlook for you. My outlook is what we, or I, could expect, I don't know when. Speaking digital transformation, the following might appear as a revolution or evolution at an undetermined moment in future. Each European city, definitely Copenhagen, Malmö, Warsaw, and Athens, will operate a city climate platform. This city climate platform will be an open data platform that engages and supports different stakeholders, decision makers in local governments, community groups, businesses, what have you, individuals, me, Smart devices facilitate the interaction. Data sovereignty and privacy completely ensured. That metadata is available to make business out of it for many, so they can engage. And it generates revenues for the local administration. Big deal. As data and reporting platform, it supports to steer and plan the integrated climate program, the Sustainable Energy, Climate and Climate Adaptation Action Plan. It supports planning, priority setting, investment, implementation, monitoring, reporting, all the chain in the management cycle. An interface is established to the city budgeting. That is decision making. The steering platform organizes and it's maintained by the local government, obviously, organizes sort of the decision making with many of the infrastructure decisions the council will do. It helps the integration of political objectives in areas such as climate neutrality, resilience, air quality, biodiversity, urban comfort, life quality, public health, what have you, infrastructure, housing, others. The instrument helps managing the requirements under the various political commitments signed up by the City Council, Covenant of Mayors, EU Mission, Green City Accord, Climate Pact, what have you. There are many others. The platform is designed to facilitate citizen climate information, but also the participation. It's an engagement and engaging tool. It supports co-creation, hence it supports the community action integration into the Council's doings and commitments. By that, it supports the implementation of the Climate City contract or the Resilient City contract, which are new instruments under the EU mission for climate adaptation and climate neutrality. But also the local Green Deals, like Mannheim has promoted, and their stakeholders. So it is, to a certain extent, a mission heritage from the mission that we had many, many years ago. We are in the future somewhere. In support of the climate and environmental health action, the platform helps also to organize and coordinate financing. Wonderful. A regional fund has been set up. Access and interaction is facilitated by the platform. The city has included a new module, a digital twin of the city that will support planning decisions. Where should be trees? Where should be houses? Where should we have cycle lanes? That all is organized, but also when it comes to disaster risk management, where are our weak points? Where do we need to go? Where are the vulnerable people? So everything is wonderfully organized in that platform. The platform has been incrementally developed. It completely fulfills the requirements of ISO 37000 series that puts smart in service of sustainable. We have everything organized. Wonderful. It supports the close collaboration with the private sector, service providers, while being democratically legitimized and publicly controlled. Back to now. Obviously, I'm not sure if that is possible, if that will take shape, but it's what we, from a civil society and local government perspective, would like to have. In Germany, we would call it eierlegende Wollmilchsau. I don't have a translation. It's this thing that does everything for everyone at any time. But in any case, by looking back, 2008, the Covenant of Mayors was launched. I don't know who was working in the climate field then, but the Covenant of Mayors did then not provide a tool to underpin monitoring and reporting. We don't even had an Excel tool for that. Cities organized the Excel tool by themselves. It was not the period of sort of the sneakers network where you went by diskette from one computer to the other. We had an internet connection, of course, but we weren't ready for that need of the Covenant of Mayors commitment for like a climate target in 2020. Now we talk about 2030. And I think here it becomes somewhat close. It is 12 years ago. What I just dreamed of, is that possible to be implemented in 12 years from now? I don't know. It might happen. Google will tell us, hopefully, because they are the ones that have the power to develop such things. So this may suggest that the platform could be available, but given the urge of the climate action, that we need to implement, we need anyways to speed up the efforts. So we need to give it a try. That is the important part. We need to collect and collate the partnerships to help. And we need to have the development power, the capacity, and that is where private sector actors definitely come into the picture. This is why we entered into the collaboration with Google. So introducing quickly the Google work that we've done, actually the cities have been doing with Google. It is now for a little bit more than a year, 1.5 years or so, but also our ICLEI office in the US is working on that with a couple of cities. We have been closely working with Google on 9 EU cities that you see here on the map. Malmö is one of them, Copenhagen is one of them. We have basically explored and evaluated the Google Environmental Insight Explorer tool that could potentially support them in advance their journey to become carbon neutral and climate resilient. In the last few months, we have developed a methodological assessment, and we are going to talk about this, how Google EIE data could help and support cities in their climate action journey, with an emphasis mostly on the carbon-intensive sectors, transport and buildings. When embarking on this journey, we identified the policymakers, obviously, and practitioners facing significant challenges in strategic planning and implementing climate actions because of limited data availability and accessibility, and also a lack of data quality. And here we are not far away from 2008, when the Covenant of Mayors was set up. Therefore, when we were exploring further with Google EIE, we hope to identify sort of lines of actions, how we can employ it, and how even Google EIE could be better in support and service for the cities. Some of these highlights of or some highlights on the results, and then I come to close, Daniela. It might help, and that is what our cities collectively told us, it might help optimizing the greenhouse gas emissions accounting. Google EIE obviously offers new data that is not easily accessible for the cities, and that can help to reduce the time and effort required to develop greenhouse gas emissions inventory. So being more on time, more up to date, that is an important message here. It could support the climate ambitions and the implementation thereof. And it could help to reshape the climate planning process to meet the new ambitions even for 2030 or beyond, and confirms that the continuous access to Google data is an attractive opportunity to tap into for data-driven processes, even in the long run. It is relatively easy to use. We will hear stories about that. So it can encourage local, sectoral, and cross-boundary analysis. And here we had a couple of issues. I'm very curious to hear what our colleagues tell us about that, because we feel that here it can actually also complement, cross-check data that is available from other sources. So that might be a very good opportunity also to validate and verify. It could provide additional sources. Of course, it starts not by the public data in the database of the city, but it helps also to use movement data, for example, or buildings data that is available from other sources. And we look forward to hear what comes out of that. Finally, it could even help benchmarking if cities wanted so. Not all cities would like to have that, but it could facilitate an international benchmarking and set sort of the bar what is possible. And I think I should stop here to not.
Yes, it's okay. Thank you very much, Olger. So now that we have had this wonderful introduction about how data can give cities a new outlook in order to go forward, I think that the message that Olger has shared with us, that data has been there for years. But again, the question is, are we really using it correctly or not? So now, Yulen and I, we've been practicing this a lot. So you know that online we have a lot of people that are connected. It's very good because we have European people and from other parts of the world, and probably we are going to have some questions. So Yulen and I, we are going to have this. And we are also having another cities and another panelists connected from line. So I don't know, Yulen, do we have any questions so far for Olger or some comment that you would like to highlight?
There's just one question here online from Shisco. He says, can we ask EU funds to expedite the platform?
The
But Yeah.
I think that we will see that later.
Yes,
Okay,
maybe
good.
not for now.
So the thing is that in order for us to be situated in the thing, we are going to do a poll. Okay. So the ones that are connected online can see the poll in their screen, and the ones that are here, you have to open the app of the Hoping app of the event. I don't know if you have it. Yeah. So the first question, Yulen,
Yeah,
is
so we move to the poll section, and we have already a question here saying, do you use the data in your work with climate action and resilience? So please, we would like to know this
currently.
quickly to get.
Are we using the data or not? How are the
Okay,
results?
we're already. Um, can we go back to see the results of the first question?
Yeah, I think it's below. There.
Okay, so
Oh, 83%.
yeah, we already have some votes, and clearly the yes is winning with
That's good.
88% of the votes right now. Okay, people is using
Is using
data.
the data. That is good.
That is
So
very
the
good.
next question.
And we can move to the next question now. In which field of action is data supporting your work? So we have several options: data analysis, risk assessment, EHG emissions accounting, or all of the above, or none of the above, of course. So let's see what are the votes. Okay, it's quite balanced. Looks like data analysis is winning, and also, yeah, all of the above together. It's interesting, yeah. Let's see, some more people are voting. Clearly, data analysis
That's
is the winner.
analysis. That's so good. So we are using the data for analyzing. But let's don't move from this technical term that we said, the analysis, to the paralysis. No, we have to really use the data to move forward. So the next question, Julian.
Okay, and we have now, have you used the Google Environmental Sites Explorer tool before? Yes or no? Okay, I see the no is winning here,
No,
so
okay.
that's good because people will get to know the tool today.
Better, perfect. Thank you very much. So yes, so that we are in a perfect moment then to introduce the tool. And for this, I would like to introduce Christopher Bryan from Google. He's connected very early from the United States. He has done a great effort to be here. So Christopher is there. Thank you. So thank you for connecting. It's so early there. Thank you so much, Christopher. So before Christopher starts with his presentation, we are going to put a video to inspire us and to put us in a more data-driven mode. Okay, so we are going to put a video now about the tool, and then I will give the floor to Christopher.
The world is working to unlock the solutions to the climate crisis. But without good data, even the most impactful ideas can't take hold. Google's Environmental Insights Explorer is an online tool built to empower cities with data to take informed action, making it easier for cities to measure, plan, and reduce the world's carbon emissions. Dublin City Council used Environmental Insights Explorer to implement smart transport policies to improve cycling infrastructure and track their efforts for sustainable modes of transport. Environmental Insights Explorer showed Mexico City its building emissions and the potential to generate over 4 megawatts of renewable energy from rooftop solar. And in Melbourne, Australia, it highlighted the solar potential to power the entire city. Google's Environmental Insights Explorer, helping create a healthier, cleaner future for citizens around the world.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So, Christopher, please, floor is yours. You can share your slides. Can we connect? Yeah, there. We can see your slides.
Okay, there we go. Can you all hear me?
Yes, perfect. And we can see you too.
Perfect. All right, well, thank you, Daniela. Hello, everyone. My name is Christopher, and I am based out of Seattle, Washington, here in the U.S., where it is now currently 5:25 a.m., so a little bit dark, and forgive my harsh lighting here. I am a software engineer on EIE. I've been involved with EIE and launching it since inception. And I wish I could be there in person with you all, but I hope you all are doing well over there in beautiful Malmo. Today, I'd like to tell you about Google's Environmental Insights Explorer and how we're hoping to help cities fight climate change. So I'll take us through a brief introduction and the insights available in EIE. Then I'll do a live demo where we'll get a deep dive into each of EIE's datasets. And then finally, we'll come back for a few examples of EIE in action. So as you all know, cities increase living standards and opportunity, they spur innovation, and they encourage collaboration. They can also be the most sustainable way for people to inhabit our planet if we can address the fact that cities are responsible for up to 70% of the world's CO2 emissions, and many cities don't necessarily have the data or the technology to make progress on their climate commitments. And that's why we created the Environmental Insights Explorer, or EIE. Since first launching EIE in 2018, we've made more than 9,000 city profiles accessible by simply registering for access on the website today. You can do this yourself today. Our goal is to continue making more insights accessible to more cities in the coming year. And EIE helps cities address 4 key areas in climate action planning: to measure, plan, act, and track their emissions year over year. And our first data set is building energy emissions. And these are based on the building footprints and the heights that you can see when you zoom in on Google Maps. Transportation data includes the number of trips and distance traveled by carbon emitting modes such as vehicles and buses, as well as self-powered travel such as walking and cycling. To date, EIE has validated its transportation data set against various sources of ground truth across 3 cities in the US and Ireland. And while this data is aggregated to the annual level, the study with data from Boulder, Colorado showed that even when comparing EIE to on-road sensors, we're able to accurately model traffic flows even at hourly intervals across the day. Using satellite imagery and machine learning, EIE can detect ruse and estimate the maximum potential of the energy and emissions offset by solar roof installations. By outfitting Google Street View vehicles with air quality sensors, we can map street level air quality to help understand the impacts within a city at a very hyper-local level. And finally, using aerial imagery and AI, EIE can detect where trees are located throughout a city, which can help cities strategize where to plant trees to optimize for community benefits. And just last week, we announced that we'll be launching Tree Canopy to 3 cities in Europe: London, Paris, and Dublin in the first quarter of 2022. And over the rest of the year, we plan to expand our coverage to 100 cities throughout the world before the year ends. So with that, I will take this opportunity to do a little demo, and we'll get a chance to dive a little deeper into the insight data sets that we've just talked about. Go ahead and I will reshare.
Well, we are having some trouble in sharing, but it's fine, we can wait. So please, in the meantime, please think about some questions that you have for Christopher. You can put it in the mobile phone app, or then we will also give the floor for you to probably answer a couple of questions, okay? So there we are. Ready, Christopher? Okay, we can see very well.
Okay, there we go. Every time I present a tab, it mutes me. So today I'd like to use the example of Athens, and as I understand it, there are a couple of folks from the Athens team here in the audience, so thank you all for using EIE and providing your feedback. That is, of course, very much appreciated. So our first data set we'll get into is building emissions. And when you click on the Buildings Overview tab, you will first see this map, which breaks out residential and non-residential footprints in the city. Again, these are based on the footprints that you see in Google Maps. When you scroll a little bit lower here, you'll see that the emissions as well as the total floor area is also broken out between those two. And you have the ability to adjust these values, right? So if we open this modal here, if you are doing GHG inventories and you have better localized data, perhaps you have better emissions factors, you can update these for the amount of carbon intensity coming from the grid, as well as the percentage usage of natural gas and diesel and propane. So to walk through a very simple example here of how we also might use EIE to do some light scenario modeling, we can look at this floor space and the energy use intensity. So I'm currently in the non-residential emissions area, which accounts for things like retail, offices, warehouses, and hospitals, and a few other categories. And so this is currently, we are showing about 15 million square meters of floor space here. So if we were to go and increase that, let's say to 16 million square meters, of course, we'll have increased the floor area by about 1%. And so perhaps there is a program to increase the amount of floor space available to commercial businesses in the area for, of course, economic growth within the city. But of course, that will increase the emissions that are being created by the city. So an example might be, how do we go and offset that? Perhaps we can explore what a high efficiency LED lighting program might do. So if we have done some calculations and found that a incentive program to promote LED lighting throughout all, many commercial spaces results in about a 1% change, that results in a decrease also of about 4 kilowatt hours per square meter over the course of the year. So if we go and update that here, we can see that before, while we have increased emissions by 1%, we are now offsetting emissions by also 1%, at the same time while increasing the floor area available to our businesses in the city. So of course, a very simplified example here, but this provides a sense of what you can do to play around with different scenarios and start the dialogue on what is possible. So next, I'll move over to transportation. And in transportation, when you get here, you will see a few things. You'll see this map here, and the 3 different direction categories that we surface in EIE are all trips that stay within the boundary. So those that start and end within your city administrative area, as well as those that come into the city. So they start outside of the city or leave the city, where they end in the city, outside of the city. You scroll a little bit lower, we have been surfacing these emissions over the course of the past several years now, and you can see the yearly rate of change here. If you go down a little bit lower, we similarly break this out into these 3 categories in terms of emissions and the amount of vehicle kilometers traveled. Then here in this graph that you see, we are leveraging our device activities, so users that have opted into location history, which is anonymized and aggregated, but we apply machine learning techniques to infer the types of travel they might be doing across a number of different categories, such as vehicles and motorcycles, as well as self-powered walking and cycling, as I've mentioned before, as well as public transit methods like trains and buses. So there's also space similar to buildings to go and customize some of these values. So if we were to go ahead and look at the trips that are leaving the city, we see that if you are doing a GHG inventory, you can, and you have better localized data, you can again go and update the efficiencies as well as the emissions factors that are more appropriate for your region. But on top of that, we can also do some more light scenario modeling here. So I'll take the example of doing some mode shift. So currently we are showing about 499 million kilometers traveled, again, for those trips that are leaving the city. So perhaps these are some of these are commuters that we'd like to mode shift into a public transit mode, such as bus. If we were to go ahead and say, perhaps we can shift about 1% of those, that is 4 that is about 5 million kilometers. And so we can see that when we go and make this change, of course, we have taken away 5 million kilometers and 1%, and of course, dropped this down to 99%. Now, that makes sense. But of course, we've got to put these miles elsewhere. And if we're talking about mode shift, if we were to go and add this to our bus mode here, what does that look like? So we've got about 50 million kilometers here. So we can increase this by 5. And so, again, sensibly, we have increased our emissions by moving these trips over to buses by about 2%. But procurement in the city has an idea. They recognize that about 1/3 of the bus fleet in the city is about 14 or 15 years old and nearing their end of life. So they are considering changing over this 1/3 of the fleet to electric buses. And so we can play with that example to see, how an opportunity to procure to update the fleet might combine with a mode shift program. So if we were to buy new buses for about 1/3, we can reduce the emissions factor by that much, from 3 to 2. And then, of course, that would increase our overall vehicle efficiency by some amount. Let's just say that may increase by about 4.5 to 4.5 kilometers per liter in terms of the overall fleet efficiency. So we can see that what we've done here is done this light scenario modeling that results in about 7% offset from our original emissions that are associated to these trips that are leaving the city. And you can repeat this exercise for those that are coming in. You could mirror that over, or focus on trips that are only starting in and ending within the city. So moving on to rooftop solar potential, when you get here, the first thing you'll also see is this map, which is very fun to zoom in. And if you get in really close, you can see individual roofs and the amount of sun that they get from the shading to the full sun that they get that is unobstructed. I'll scroll a little bit lower down here, and we'll come back to this portion. But you're going to get a whole bunch of stats about your city, such as the number of roofs that are available, the maximum capacity in terms of the megawatts that you'd be able to achieve if you were to theoretically outfit every single usable roof space with solar panels, and other statistics such as the direction of the roofs, how many are flat and south-facing, and etc. So I won't get into all of these, but I highly encourage you to check out the stats that are shown on this page. And just yesterday, we launched a new feature within Solar Roof Potential, which allows us to set goals based on that maximum. So in this case, this defaults to 375 megawatts. And if we have this allows cities to play with the target goal and set a start and end year. So perhaps if we are targeting 266 megawatts, which is 71% of our total available by 2030, we can see that these are the amount of megawatts of solar panels that we'll have to install every single year in order to hit that goal by 2030, compared to the maximum available. You can actually go and customize this further. And you may have noticed that there is a green jobs section here. So we have a default 12 jobs based on industry standards per megawatt installed. So you can update that if you have better localized information. And this will result in 355 jobs that have been created per year throughout this plan all the way through 2030. So I'm going to switch over to the main EIE site. So let me go ahead and do that.
Technology is great. You can see it. Yeah.
All right. Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Perfect. Getting better at this. So you can explore our new EIE Labs products on yourself as well. They are on the main EIE page, in which you can see at insights.sustainability.google. And we've got two that we've talked about. We've got air quality and tree canopy. So let's dive into those. So for air quality, when you get here, what you'll see is this interactive map. And we have launched in 3 cities, Amsterdam, Copenhagen, and London. Let's go ahead and select Copenhagen. I believe our friends are in the audience there as well. And when you select this, you'll see a few things. You'll see a distribution of various pollutants, and you can choose between nitrogen dioxide, black carbon, and fine particulate matter. So let's stick with NOx here, and you can zoom in on this map and select individual street segments where our street view vehicles have actually driven. So let's click on this segment right here. And that will highlight this in purple, and we see that for NOx, we have 19 micrograms per cubic meter. So there are, again, multiple pollutants here that you can explore, and this will allow folks to dive into different areas in the city, and with your understanding of the local space, try and see if there are areas that we can improve air quality throughout the city. So getting back to tree canopy here. Tree canopy is a very interesting data set, and I understand there's some excitement from the group here. So we're certainly excited for this, and we think that this is really promising. So far, we have launched tree canopy for about 12 to 14 cities here in the United States, which you can see, and go ahead and explore that on your own. I'm going to select Kirkland, which is just outside of Seattle, a very beautiful city. Then when you get here, you'll see a few things. Of course, you've got this interactive map on the right-hand side, and there are 3 base layers that you can select. Tree canopy, which is the default here, surface temperature, as well as population density. And so the idea here is that using these 3 layers, you can begin to triangulate areas that could use tree canopy the most. All right, say the places that have the least amount of tree canopy, but the highest surface temperatures and the highest population density. If you click on the map area, in this case, because we're in the US, these zones are zip codes. You can see stats specific to that area in terms of the amount of acreage covered, the percent coverage of landmass, and that population density. On the left-hand side, you're going to see lots of different filters that are available for land use and land cover. So you can select and drill down into the areas that are within your policy purview. A very cool feature is being able to draw a polygon. So if we were to go ahead and say, we'd like to draw a polygon, I'm going to select one of my favorite parks over here, Big Fin. And we can see that there is a park here. If we switch on the satellite view, we can have that as an overlay as well, but I'll turn it back over to the map. And we can use the mouse to draw this polygon into really any shape that we want. I'll just do a simple quadrilateral here. And this will tell us for that specific area what that canopy coverage is, as well as the statistics that we saw earlier about population density and the acreage involved. So I'm going to jump back and see if I can do this very quickly. All right. So I'd love to walk through a couple of examples of EIE in action. So first stop is San Jose, California. San Jose has launched a clean energy program to deliver incentives to its residents and become the world's first gigawatt city powered by solar. And this target was set based on Google's Solar Insights that we just walked through. The policy is helping drive adoption of solar and increase the number of solar rooftops in San Jose. And today, San Jose is the 5th largest city in the US for the total number of solar panels installed. Next up is Mexico City. And EIE demonstrated that Mexico City's building emissions side by side with its potential to generate 4 megawatts of renewable energy from rooftop solar. And the first grantee from Google.org's Action Fund in collaboration with ICLEI is Iniciativa Climática de México, a nonprofit organization that catalyzes climate policy at the national and city levels. And their goal is to reduce GHG emissions and promote low carbon growth in Mexico. our final stop is Dublin. The Dublin City Council used EIE to understand biking use across the city to improve its cycling infrastructure. And now they plan to use EIE to track its progress year over year to understand the effectiveness of their policies and how cycling use changes over time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Christopher. Excellent. I think that, of course, now you are all invited to navigate in the tool. I think that that's experiences that we cannot miss. In the marketplace, you can also have some chance to see some videos there. But now, as a matter of time, we are going to answer only 2 questions from the online audience, and then we can gather more questions. Okay? So, Yulen, which questions we can ask Brian?
Okay, we have here first a very quick question from Cisco. How small can the city be in order to still use the Google EIE platform? Is there a minimum size it should be?
We don't have a strict cutoff necessarily, but the constraint for us is making sure that all the data in the city that from all the devices can be properly anonymized to very, very high privacy standards. So generally, that means that that's around a city population of about 35,000. But I would say that that shouldn't stop you from trying to sign up for EIE and look for your city. And if it's there, then we can start that conversation.
Okay. Good. Another question?
Okay, and another one. Does the EIE tool provide options for downloading the data to use it for own further analysis?
Yes, absolutely. There is a download functionality on the upper right-hand corner, so you can download data from buildings, transport, and solar in order to use that in offline calculations and your own workflow.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So we don't have so much time to continue. We have to continue with the panel. Urgent question now for Christopher here in the audience. You want to listen more and then more questions. Okay, good. So now we are going to the practical experience. So now I would like to ask Marcin from the city of Warsaw to share Warsaw experience in using Google EIE and also to share with us what is your data-driven approach. Marcin, please.
Thank you, Daniela. Always a challenge to speak about native speaker, right? And I do have a feeling that I will repeat a lot what Holger already said at the very beginning, but let me introduce you a bit. How does it look like in Warsaw? Why such tools are so, are so usable for us, are so necessary, and how we can leverage the knowledge together with the business, for example. So as a city of Warsaw, we are committed to reduce 40% of our greenhouse gases emission by 2030 and become a climate neutral city no later than 2050. So let me ask you a question. Does it sound ambitious to you? 40% by 2030 and neutrality by 2050? I can see some yeses, but in the context of net zero emissions, like net zero cities 2030, it might sound a bit low. That's correct, it is, but it's still a challenge for us, and let me explain you why. I don't have my slides with me, but I will tell you a bit more how our emissions looks like. We conducted greenhouse gas emission inventory based on 2019 data this year, and it turned out that total lump sum is about 12 million tons of CO2 annually. 1% of that is waste, pretty low. We will focus a bit more on waste in the coming years, maybe calculate different data and so on. 17% is in transport, mostly on road transport, road traffic, private cars, and 82% is stationary emissions. So the heat, the electricity, the grid, energy consumption, and energy generation. But at the same time, it's worth mentioning that about 70% of our city carbon emissions come from state-owned combined heat and power plants in Warsaw. We've got 4 of these facilities, 2 are CHPs and 2 are just for heat. And considering that, we do operate in a coal-based economy in Poland. That's pretty obvious, right? And considering that local conditions, it's still hard to achieve those 40% in 2030. So not to speak about becoming carbon neutral in just 10 years, right? And it is really difficult. We do a lot. We cooperate with many different institutions. With ICLEI, we cooperate with C40. On our CAP, Climate Action Planning Framework, we cooperate with EBRD. We are one of the green cities Nigel mentioned yesterday. But it's still not enough. It's really difficult. It's extremely difficult to find a way to reduce, to do more and to reduce more. It is difficult, but I don't think we have another option, right? Every 25 minutes a new baby is born in Warsaw. Every 1.5 minutes a new baby is born in Poland. And I'm, as a father of 2-year-old, I can't accept the status quo. I can't accept that, I can't accept the current status, right? The mindset that we do a lot and we cannot push that agenda forward. And it is a challenge. It is a real challenge, but also a huge responsibility, and a huge responsibility also for the local governments. So let me ask you another question. I know we do have some city representatives here. Could you please raise your hand up if you're a city representative? How big is your team focused on climate? Just the two of you. Okay, cool. I know I can see colleague from Malmo. How big is your team focused on climate? More or less. Wow, that's impressive. Okay, and how about Copenhagen? Do you know?
Copenhagen, Rasmus?
I think it's spread out a lot. So, so the climate core team is 10, 15. Then you have but then you also have garbage collection, recycling,
Yep.
plus. So that's say between 50 and 100.
Oh.
Sounds good. But we've got an example of 2. I'm leading an amazing team of 8 people, local climate leaders. So as you can see, sometimes the responsibility isn't followed by, I don't know, unlimited resources, right? And a huge team devoted to climate change adaptation, resilience, but also mitigation. It is what it is, right? And we have to deal with it. And many of my colleagues, and I believe your cases as well, they are working on not only on climate, right? Not only on resilience, not only on mitigation. They do air quality. They do, I don't know, the tree canopy and the greenery across the city. Lots of issues, right? Covered by, I don't know, 2 people, and in my case, 8. Scandinavian cities are a bit way more advanced than we are, but that's our case. And this is why such tools that was presented right now are so important, right? Any help, any assistance, any process optimization of getting data, analyzing data, and work on data is not only welcomed, it's necessary, at least in our cases. And I think it's my opinion, but I think you can relate, I hope so. We have 2 main problems with data. On the one hand side, we have the data collection and the lack of data. So we collect a lot. Different processes requires different data all the time. And if you're into, I don't know, many projects, you may have a feeling that you do only data collection all the time. And in many cases, you're lacking of data. There is no data that is necessary. There's no data that is required. For example, I don't know, district heating companies are not, they don't have to provide you data. So you have to ask. They don't want to give you the data because of GDPR and so on. All that histories. So you have to collect it manually. You have to calculate the data. I don't know. Be very creative in that field, right? And on the other hand side, you have the data analysis. So even if you do have data, if you have all the data necessary, then I don't know, 2 people, 8 people, these teams are not able to to work on that data efficiently, right? We don't have a situation when we do have a team of analysts working on data, do some internal consulting, let's say. So you have to do it again very carefully, manually, and translate the data into strategic planning, right? That the process you described. And even if if you're finished with planning, right? You have your strategy, you have your plan project, amazing, best project ever. Then you have to evaluate, then you have to measure the progress, then you have to, I don't know, rearrange the project and plan again. It's never-ending story. It's a circle, right? We do love circles, all, I guess. Every good project is a circle, but but that's an issue. That's an obvious issue. And I truly believe in all those processes I mentioned before. Holger described the companies like Google and tools like that can jump in. It can be really, really useful and really, really helpful. Of course, it depends on the credibility of data, depends on the data sources, depends on the tailoring the data for the local needs. That's a challenge as well. Also some some legal aspects, the availability of data in the coming years if you are in a partnership with some company. But anyway, such cooperation are worth exploring, in my opinion. It is a must. And this is the reason why we decided to join an ICLEI pilot to work with Google to find out how it looks like in transport. And we actually our C40 partner decided to take a look at Google data to have some proof checking and checking between our inventory and C40 inventory. Google inventory, Google AIE. These are the activity data. We do have some already calculated data. They are similar. It gives you more breakdowns, for example, in the terms of transport and modal split, right? That's really useful. Yeah, and that's the reason we do that. We invest our time as a city, our limited resources, to get as much as possible in the coming years after these are tested, these are, I don't know, evaluated, reshaped, and so on. I think about this as an investment. And I really have an appetite to get as much as possible from this tool. To close up this session and jump into panel dialogue and discussion about the specific use cases, I will tell you one quote I recently heard. It was from a serious person, not like I don't know, a newspaper or some internet user, but from, I don't know, not a professor, but maybe a decision maker. He told that the climate change can no longer be stopped, that we have gone too far, and the only sensible actions worth investing in are adaptation to these changes. I don't know what's your perspective. I don't know what's your perspective. I don't believe that. I think we can still do a lot, both on adaptation, both on mitigation equally, and much more on many fronts. But without private sector, without external partnerships, without external funds, it is not possible, and it won't be possible. Right? No brainer, at least for me, no possible. This is the reason why meetings like this are so important. Right? This is so important meeting. This is so important occasion for us to keep talking with the business, with partners, to keep talking with different stakeholders. I don't know, exploring different ways to build partnerships and to, let's say, invest some time to get more in the future. And let's save to, and we should do that. We should do that anytime possible until we are, let's say, back on safe climate tracks, right? So thanks again. That's a great opportunity to be there, and please feel free. We are extremely open to cooperate, extremely open to talk, extremely open to explore more, and happy to discuss it with you today during the panel. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Marcin. Wonderful. I think that you have shared the vision that not only Warsaw, but lots of cities in Europe and beyond Europe have. So thank you for sharing this. I think that you have also brought us a little to the reality, that probably we can think that we have wonderful tools, full technology, the wonderful data, but probably we are not capable with the resources that we have to exploit it good. But we are working on it, and I think that we will all be working on this in the following months and years. And I think that we have to have this positive vision of transforming the information that we have in actionable insights to help our work. So now we are going from Warsaw directly to Copenhagen. So, and I think that I am very happy that Rasmus is here. We've been working a lot online, like almost for 1 year, and finally we met. Rasmus, please, I think that you are one of the persons that have more experience in using Google EIE more than us, so thank you very much for coming.
Yes, thank you very much.
Here, with this we can move the slides. You are so tall, I will sit down.
Sorry,
Yes.
that's not my fault. Yes, so my name is Rasmus. I come from the city of Copenhagen. I have been for the last 3 years been leading the cooperation we have between Google and city of Copenhagen and Utrecht on collecting street by street air quality data. So that's my background. I'm currently living in Brussels. Completely different story. Also pollution-wise. So I'm a little bit in between seats at the moment. I'm speaking for the sort of what we've been doing in Copenhagen. So air pollution, why is it important? First of all, air pollution is much more dangerous than we thought. It's killing a lot of people. So that's one. But the other thing is that the root cause of air pollution is burning fossil fuel. So the link to the climate debate is very strong. And the key difference is people care about health and their children's health and so on. So it's a way to get into the minds of people. So apart from the technical, it's also a very strong leverage point into to people's minds and hearts. So in 2018, we started what is called the Copenhagen Air View. Now Christopher just showed it, but what it is really, does it work? No? Yes? What it is that we mapped Copenhagen. So we have driven with a street view car filled with high-grade science equipment, and we have now 6 million data points for every street. Every street has been driven 6 times. So this is what it looks on the EIE site, but also we actually published the data openly. There it is. So you can actually go to OpenData.dk, download the data sets, and you'll have a GeoJSON file or shape file or JSON file that you can work with. So that is actually quite interesting. So not only can you check the data, you could also add, augment data with other types of data. And this is what we've been doing together with GEL. GEL Architects is sort of a world leader in looking of architecture between the buildings. So life between the buildings is very much their motto. And we asked them, how would a city look like? How would city planning look like if you added air quality as a pillar into city planning? So that's what we've been doing, and that came to be the Thrive Zone projects. So it's actually 3 projects. The first was in 2019, and so on. Yes. I think I'll skip one very fast because we can come back to that. So what we've been trying to develop is actually a toolbox for cities. So how do you go about protecting the citizens? How can you reduce the exposure to people? So that is sort of a physical intervention. But also, how can you invite people to stay the places, to live in the places where you have the best air quality? So that's sort of the 2 principles: invite people and reduce the exposure. This is very much focused on exposure in this project. It's not sort of how to reduce the overall level. That is, of course, the most important. But also, what can you do on a local level? Yes. So let me just skip a bit. So if you go back to the data, we can create maps. We can zoom in on areas. So this is one of these sort of test sites we look at when you look at it from a data set perspective of using open source visualization tools. So this is open source Kepler.gl. You can use it directly online. And then we started to use and augment these data. So this is when you look at, from a different perspective, adding noise, adding building data, geography from the city perspective. So then you start to get a more holistic perspective of actually. So here we into the workflow that we're working on from a data perspective, using a data set, adding data we have on top to get an analysis of where are hotspots. It then identify areas where we need to make decisions and also actions. Yes. We also looked outside of these types of geographical data. We looked at social media data. We like to understand why are people where they are and when are they there. So we looked at Google Maps place data. You can get those from an open API. We also looked at Instagram data, the check-in, where do you check in on Instagram? And then we get a quite visual sense of where people actually are during daytime, nighttime. You can slice and dice it, summertime, wintertime. You can do whatever you want with this data. So we also like to understand not just the physical, but also understand why are people there. If we have to move their hearts, then we need to understand what they're doing. So as sort of a linguistic analysis of what people are doing. So that's sort of the data track where we get sources from the internet or from cities. But then we also asked people. So this is what it looked like when you have 700 people drawing the routes on top of a map. Fairly chaotic, but this is where data actually gets in. So when you make a spatial regression analysis, then you get maps like this, where you can actually see purple is where people are staying. It's sort of a square with a lot of people are residing. There's a playground and so on. And that's sort of also where we end the data track, so to speak. Because this is where we need the designers, this is where we need sort of the human intelligence and sort of evaluation of how we're actually going to do and make great cities. So one of the places here is, when you look at it from a map from this perspective, it's really just colors. But if you go in with your human intelligence, say you actually have a lot of institutions there. You have children staying for 8 hours a day. You have high air pollution levels on top of noise and stuff. So you have a lot of stresses in this area. This is a hotspot we can do something about. So the first intervention we designed was actually where we had the yellow star. So just to show you how it works. So this is a green wall. So you have the road outside, and then build the green wall. And even this thin wall where you can see through, we are able to reduce 3 to 5% from this layer of green, just for the people on the outside. So one side to another, a reduction of 3 to 5%. So that's sort of what we've been doing with this. Yes, so that's one intervention, making a public space that people can use, but also improving, inviting them to a place that is more safe than the other way. So if you go across the bridge from Sweden and you end up in the area around Kastrup Airport, and when you look at it from this side, I'm just in the way, sorry. It's actually the most polluted place for ultrafine particles in Copenhagen area. So there's a mix of the airport and also the motorway. But the motorway is also going very going through a residential area. So if you zoom in on that, I'm just trying to get out of the way. So, yeah. So if you look at this, this is a residential area, and you have a motorway going right through, and so living there is actually very difficult to make solutions where you invite people to a safe place. So what do? So first of all, you shouldn't have put a motorway through a residential area. But that's the legacy we have. So we built domes, and it's a way to illustrate the area, the problems of the area. So inside we have plants that actually clean the air. So we have 12% less PM2.5 particles, and we have 13% less ultrafine particles inside than outside. But when we do projects like this, the project is also engaging people. So this is also about telling people that you're actually living in an area where you should perhaps be wary of what you do. And this is also a very powerful statement to give to a mayor and say, you have a problem, and we need to do something about it. So projects and data and workflows like this is also a way to engage local citizens. And perhaps a little bit back to you. All the problems do not need to be solved by the city. You can work with people and have them put a pressure on change behavior, so on also. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Rasmus. Wonderful. Thank you. So I think that Rasmus has touched a very important issue that was raised yesterday, that what are the co-benefits of acting when we're talking about climate, no? So we are talking here of a specific interventions on a local level that are reducing air pollution, reducing exposure to air pollution, but also bringing people to the cities. I've heard in the session from Nature-Based Solutions earlier here in the forum that they were talking that how difficult it is to also bring people and make people part of the design of green corridors or other things. So this is a very important example also of engaging people since the beginning. Thank you very much, Rasmus. So we are a little late, so I would like to invite Lina, which is connected, and I think that your presentation has set the specific point and the right moment where Lina comes. Lina comes from the Resilient Cities Network, so we wanted to have Lina here so she can share more overarching visions of the importance of having data to plan better and to be more resilient. Lina, please. We can hear you and see you.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Apologies for not being there. This has been a great, actually, session so far. It's tough to follow, I think, the Copenhagen example, to be honest. So I want to focus on three main things, and these are also a bit some reflections from the previous speakers. So we're talking about, resilient cities, of course. So resilient and a resilient city is a city that doesn't just survive, but actually thrives, regardless of the different kind of challenges it has to face. And this is why it is important that when we talk about data, that data actually connect and support the developmental agenda of the city. And I think Martin mentioned that at his intervention. So I think it is important to understand how the data actually support the overarching objectives and vision of the city. And this is why it is not for just data for the sake of data, but actually understanding what are the specific data sets, how you prioritize these data sets that actually are useful and can address the critical issues that a city needs to face. And this is also where, and I think most cities at this point are committed to the global goals, to the SDGs and so on. So it is important also to understand how you connect all of this as a narrative, from understanding from capturing the data, understanding and analyzing, and see how this actually contributes to the global goals, to the KPIs. This is also where I believe the role of city networks such as ICLEI and ourselves, I think, is important. It is important to support cities in making this connection and also being able to provide a framework such as, for example, we have the city resilience framework, but there are also similar ones in order to be able to, again, understand what you see, analyze, synthesize, understand the interdependencies between the different sectors, understand the co-benefits, but also understand that, you know, one action doesn't actually create additional risk or harm to another. Because, I mean, local governance is about trade-offs. In the end of the day. So I think it is important as we try to integrate data into our day-to-day decisions to understand how we take this information and this becomes a political decision. And then the one aspect has to do with how politicians also understand the data, because you have, let's say, the technocrats that understand, but how this also becomes an intelligence that supports political decisions, and at the same time, how you help citizens also use the data in a way that creates transparency and accountability to these political decisions. The second point that I want to make has to do with what COVID has brought into surface. And actually, this was a discussion that we had in the previous panel at the forum yesterday, where it was obvious, and some of our member cities, such as London and Tel Aviv and Athens, actually highlighted, is how COVID emphasized even more the need for science-based decision, data-driven decision-making. And I think we are at that point where more or less our cities and our mayors, our politicians, our city leaders have understood the importance of listening to the science and understanding the data. So I think we are at this kind of place where tools such as the one that Google showcased, I think it is the time to kind of scale up and connect with even more local authorities and cities across the globe. Also, I think COVID has taught us the need for, you know, this kind of real-time data and the urgency, especially when a crisis hits, to be able to have this kind of real data, and being able also to predict the foresight piece. So, for example, Paris is translating at this point, is kind of transitioning their resilience agenda towards the kind of the foresight, strategic foresight, being able to identify based on data and science, what are the trends that are coming, what are the future risks that are coming. And the final point that I want to make, and I think it was partially mentioned, is of course the capacity and how we build capacity within the local authorities. Because I mean, you know, it's not just the Copenhagens of the world, but it's actually these smaller cities or medium-sized cities that don't have the knowledge, don't have the capacity, and how we ensure that this kind of process goes beyond the chief data officers of team. And actually the different people within, you know, waste management and green spaces and social policies also have the understanding, the capacity and skills to use this data, to analyze them, and to integrate them into their actions and decision-making processes. I don't want to take more of your time. I'm really looking forward to hear from the cities themselves and these kind of testimonies. And also, I'm very curious to actually see how we can potentially all together scale up this great tool that was presented today. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Lina. Thank you very much. You have now equilibrated the time that we have for the discussion. Thank you very much. So now we are going to do something crazy today, because we have 5 other cities that are connected, and they couldn't join us today, so we are going to connect them from Zoom. So for us, it's very important to have the city's vision on using a Google tool, but also other tools and other data. So we are going to call of them. So now, Julen, please, can we start to invite our cities that are connected, please?
Yes, so we would like to invite first Rui Diniz. He's from the city of Lisbon. So if you are connected, could you give us a quick feedback?
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Are you listening to me?
Yes.
Yes, but we cannot see you, Rui.
Oh, but the video is connected. Let's see. Well.
Now we see
now
you.
Perfect. You can see me. Yeah. Greetings from Lisbon, beautiful and sunny Lisbon. Congratulations on the EURESFO conference. And just a few quick words on our ICLEI pilot and Environmental Insights Explorer experience. First, Lisbon recently approved a very ambitious climate action plan. Our mitigation target is to reduce 70% by 2030 our greenhouse gas emissions. So we look at Environmental Insights Explorer as a tool that is capable of delivering us cross-checking data sets, especially on transportation and buildings, as Christopher presented us earlier. Second, our flagship measure on our climate action plan is Lisbon Solar City. So we have the ambition to install more than 100 megawatt photovoltaic capacity on our rooftops by 2030, and we have high expectations on the Environmental Insight Explorer to deliver us also cross-checking data for us to accomplish our flagship measure, the Lisbon Solar City. And so that's why we welcome this initiative, and we are still looking forward to continue to explore the tool. Thank you so much, and see you.
Thank you very much, Rui. Thank you for your feedback and your insights. Now we also have here Eleftheria Alessandri from the city of Athens. We would be glad to hear from you too, Eleftheria.
Hello. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
We see you.
Okay, excellent. So,
No. Screen.
No screen.
So anyway, thank you very much for this session, and thank you very much for the collaboration that we had with ICLEI on the Google tool, which has been extraordinary for us. About the work that we have been doing on monitoring the greenhouse gases of the city. And we have been monitoring the greenhouse gases of the city since 2014. And in the inventory that we did this year, we saw that we had an overall decrease of 14% since when we started, which is very promising and is a result of the efforts that have been made in both national and municipal level on reducing greenhouse gas emissions. And as we can see from the graph here, it is transport accounts for 25% of the greenhouse gas emissions in Athens. And this is where the Google tool plays an important role in our inventory. And we have been, the last transport study that has been made in metropolitan Athens dated back to 2008, where we had monitoring on transport. And a lot of things have changed during the past 13 years. And so we have been using the data from that analysis, the fuel sales approach, and some transport models like Tremove. And we didn't have hands-on data about transport, what was really happening in the city. And the Google tool was like manna from heaven, like something that just came very unexpectedly and it was very useful for us. And on the left side, you can see what we were estimating with transport models and the fuel sales approach. And on the right-hand side, what is estimated with the Google tool about private transport. So we were 60%, we thought that the greenhouse gas emissions from transport were 60% higher than what they seem to be really from the tool. So we can focus on the image on transport much more clearly. And another interesting thing that we came across is that we have had a survey last year on how people commute in Athens. People were responding to questionnaires.
Eleftheria, sorry we have some trouble listening. There's there's a noise in the background. So if you could, if you could just finalize in 30 seconds, please, and then we can continue. Please, we have lots of noise.
That's it. I have finished really. So this is the perception versus reality. And thank you very much for that.
Thank you very much, Eleftheria. Thanks so much. So now we are going directly to...
Yeah, we would like now to hear from Çağlar Tukel from the city of Izmir in Turkey. Please, Çağlar.
Okay. Can you hear me right now?
Yeah.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Hello from Izmir to everyone. My name is Çağlar Tukel. I work at the Climate Change and Clean Energy Directorate at Izmir Metropolitan Municipality. It has been such a great and informative event so far. We are very excited about working with ICLEI and Google on this Google Environmental Insight Explorer project. First of all, thanks to all friends at ICLEI for letting us to join this project. As a local government, finding sufficient data is really challenging at the city level. So through this Google Insight project, we will be able to collect more meaningful and supporting data in addition to the data what is available at the moment. So we believe the tool will provide comprehensive and rapid information to the cities working to tackle climate crisis. So we are looking forward to getting the positive outcome of the project. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Çağlar. Thank you very much. Yeah, we see you with a mask. For us, it's surprising here we don't have a mask. But
sorry, because I have to share the room with 5 other colleagues. Unfortunately, I have to put it on.
Yeah, no, it's fine. It's fine. Thanks for reminding us that COVID has not ended yet. Thank you very much, Çağlar. So now we are going.
We also have Chiara Lorenzini from the city of Florence. Please, Chiara.
Hello. Hello, everyone.
Hi,
Can you
Chiara.
hear me?
Yes.
Thank you, ICLEI and Daniela, for the opportunity to share Florence's view on this exciting experience with the AI tool, Google tool. For a high-quality emissions monitoring system able to support city along the path toward its ambitious 2030 and 2050 goals is a premise on which Florence has invested long before big data were a reality, and at the same time the city of Florence, which is traditionally a global city, recognized the importance of discussing and comparing its plans and actions for climate with other cities at European and global level. So Google AI represents a very powerful tool for Florence to complement existing data sources and analysis tools, because offering a different approach to emissions estimation based on big data, it provides a unique opportunity for Florence to integrate its data sources, explore a specific trend analysis, and compare with other cities. So it definitely worth to explore and eventually to enrich with elements that allow to introduce peculiarities according to local conditions. So thank you very much for involving us in this very interesting project. We are convinced that transition to a greener future is boosted by widely available data. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chiara. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And the last city that is connected online is Madrid. We have here Luis Tejero connected. Hello, Luis.
We cannot hear you, Luis.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, nice to see you. Hello, everyone. Hello, Daniela and Julian. Well, just a quick impression about how has been the experience of Madrid with this tool, with Google tool. And and it has been really an interesting process and amazing, and it has made us a very big reflections now. I will explain you. Well, we have launched recently on March our roadmap towards neutrality of the city by 2050, and we have intermediate goal to reduce 65% emissions by 2030. So I think Google could be and will be surely a good tool to follow how we are reducing the emissions on the city, and to have well, different sources of information. Well, as you know, Daniela and Julian, we made this comparison among Google results and our inventory, the one we are until now using or we are keeping using it to monitor the emissions, and we see some differences, but I think that is not a problem, and in that way we have for us it has been a very interesting, because it is making us to make a reflection how we are now getting the information and how we are doing those estimation of emissions in the city. Especially regarding transport, we are very interested because the emissions that are collected by Google and the emissions that are collected by the city of Madrid currently comes from the different methodologies. And although the differences are not really big, there are differences, and that makes us at least open a reflection about how we are doing that. I don't have a lot of results or a lot of answers, but well, the thing that we have opened this space reflection of a space of reflection is it has been very rich for us. And well, also there's other thing that I would like to put on the table. There are many things that data field is a universe, as anyone can imagine. But there's another question that we also thought about all this process, that, well, at this moment, the public, as we are a public body, we are an administration, and we get all this data from public sources and the main of the gases. And for us, that's very important to switch from another source of data that is not going to be maybe public, and maybe it's not easily for us to access to all this process of gathering the information. That is just another reflection about what our experience, and well, for the moment, that is all from my side. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Luis. Thank you very much to all the cities that were connected. So I think that moment has come to start discussing these issues. I think that we have learned from different perspectives, different cities, different types of cities, different cities in terms of size, location, but all cities are now trying to leverage the use of data for better decision making. So we are going to start the debate now, but first I would like to know if there are some questions from the public. No, you are so shy. You cannot tell me after 1.5 hours of listening you don't have any questions. So that is not possible. So yes, we have questions. Yeah, that was for sure. Please.
Yes, I have a question actually referring to this comment by the speaker from Madrid about this data governance. So why would all these cities use an advertising company like Google to be, I mean, what's about the dependence of a commercial data provider, and how do you combine it with your open data strategies and the balance between open and public and private data? So how do you manage this process, not only in terms of data privacy, but also in terms of long-term data sustainability and things like that? Yeah. So data governance is my topic. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So I would like to give the floor, Marcin.
That's a difficult question. I'm not a data guy, to be very honest. Well.
Yeah. Well,
give me some hint.
Yeah, I can help you because I think that just to clarify, when we're talking about the type of data that we are discussing now, especially with the Google, we are talking about emissions data. And currently, emissions data is a public type of data. Okay, all of the cities report emissions in different platforms. There's the integrated CDP ICLEI reporting platform, which is the most the global platform where cities can report emissions. And also here in Europe, we have the My Covenant platform from the Covenant of Mayors. So the emissions of data from the cities is public now, so we can access it, and that is something that in fact, for us doing the analysis that we are doing with the cities, we took that data as a basis. So I think that in that sense, just not to, how can I say, to start a discussion this on privacy, because emissions data, thanks God, is it public, and also governments have the mandate to make the national governments to make the data public, especially when they report on their NDCs and their advances. So we are talking on a public source of data in this sense. So that's my hint. So Marcin, you can continue. Or probably Olger would like to,
Maybe, yeah.
to share some thoughts about this.
Well, I'm obviously not representing a city, but I can claim I'm representing 2,500 cities. In any case, I think one of the most important aspects currently is, I think it's a very, very important question. I opened up by talking about data sovereignty, data privacy issues, and how that important is for reliability and accountability in local governments. So that is definitely a very important framework condition. And I can definitely say when we started the collaboration with Google, we had in our political board, which is made by mayors and vice mayors representing our member cities, we had debates about it, very, very clearly so. And it was also openly shared with our colleagues from Google. So we discussed about sort of the framework conditions. This is obviously a pilot phase, and it lives under different conditions. We test technically what works, and if there is a potential for cities to use it. So it's a test bed, it's a pilot, it's a sandbox. Yeah, and of course there is on the side of Google discussions how they will take it further, but there's also on the side of the cities considerations how they can embed this in their data governance. So I think in response to your question, it is very important. There is no one response in this very moment, but definitely there is a high-level awareness in cities of the sort of sensitivity of that issue.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Olger. I don't know, Rasmus, because you mentioned in your presentation that the data from air quality and the data that was generated is also in the open platform of the city of Copenhagen. So can you explain us a little how the data governance model of the city of Copenhagen works a little?
I think we have several, and also perhaps not one overarching one. So I think you hit the spot, and also I think also there's some elements to it. So if we take the climate sort of CO2 emission accounting that we do in Copenhagen, the honest truth is this will never be outsourced to anyone else than the city. So that is under political control, and we need that in a long run. I think what on the other end, Google and other private partners have data that no one else has. So mobility data is in the hands of mobile phones. So either you have telecom vendors, providers, or Google or Apple or something like that provides these that have these data. Cities do not have them. They're extremely expensive. They're very difficult to get by. They have a huge overhead of privacy and all those kinds of elements where Google and the like can scale things at a level no one else can. So if you would like to use the data, we have to use private data at some element or another. So I think the question is, what are we using the data for? We, in the example I gave, is very much using different type of data to actually identify where to make solutions. And I think that cross of having workflows of different types of data and make sure that we have standards and have abilities and have possibilities of crossing and slicing, dicing data to actually identify where do we get the biggest buck, biggest bang for the buck in terms of CO2 emissions and in life quality and whatever we're looking at. So I think we need to stop being scared about private data. It's a reality. We don't get anywhere without it. And we then need to understand how can we as public authorities work with data, what kind of solutions can we use them for, and actually sort of also ping pong back to Google and the like and say, can you actually guarantee that we have these data from you over the next 10 years or something like that? Because the ghost in the room or the elephant in the room is also like that private companies stop services when they're not when they like, and cities have or authorities have different obligations, and we really need to understand how we can sort of bridge that gap.
Thank you very much, Rasmus. I think that you have made the point that the importance of understanding what the data is for, and I think that makes us reflect that there's a lot of software data, but for what are we using this data? We have another question, Margarita, please.
I have a question about the use of the data. I mean, here we are talking as if local governments always do the right thing. So they get these maps and then they say, well, that's too bad. We need to build a new football field instead. And citizens are not happy, but this issue of responsibility and accountability for actually making the right use of the result of these excellent instruments that we all enjoy watching, of course. But then what? And this is not a theoretical question. It already happens that citizens questions why governments are not doing what they actually might even by law be obliged to do, and the evidence is here. This is really a question for you.
Marcin, would you like to take over this?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, the key would be transparency here and inclusivity. So, for example, if you collect data, I mean, in our case, we do collect data. We do have our own tree canopy map, and we do have a pilot on the valuation of the ecosystems in one area. And our ambition is to leverage that pilot to the whole city and then make more, let's say, database decision making when it comes to new greenery, when it comes to air quality measures, and so on. But then, if I get your question right, is the question of, if we decide to invest in the areas that are obviously most urgent, or if we made completely different decision and cooperate with a district mayor that you are mostly in touch with, right? And then, I guess that's a space for CSOs, for different organizations and stakeholders to jump in and to say, guys, you have a map, you have data, come on, invest in the most urgent areas. So the bottom-up approach, and to making a pressure to city, because we may have the best knowledge ever, but then the policy happens. Sometimes how it looks like in city. We do operate in silos as well. It's not so obvious all the time, but I guess the bottom-up approach, the transparency, opening those platforms to inhabitants so they can see how it looks like, and they can put some pressure on us on a specific areas would be a key. So if we create such data set, let's make it open for everyone so they can also participate in the decision-making process, let's say.
Yeah, Olher, please. And also, can we put the Zoom with the cities, please, and also Lina, so we can also involve them in the conversation. That's so good. Olher, please.
Oh, wonderful. Perhaps they have an answer already.
Yeah, but
to give them space, no?
Yeah, I don't know if probably Luis or Chiara or someone from that is connected would like to mention this issue about the use of data and the importance of giving the right information to citizens while making the right decisions from a local level. Luis, let's go.
Yes, okay. Well, from a side, as Holger said, I think we are talking about sometimes very sensitive information and data, and especially I talking about the case of Madrid, especially when we talk about air quality, and so we have to be very clear and very transparent and very open to the people and be always open to be very clear to transmit the information and the data origin that we provide to the people, because if not, sometimes, well, data, that also can be can have a very bad use. I mean, you can have a lot of data, but they make a very bad use of that information, even to can create some confusion. So I think being clear, being transparent, and being easy to transmit all this information is crucial for us, for this, especially for these sensitive issues.
Thank you very much, Luis. I don't know if someone else would like to comment. Yes, Eleftheria, please, and then Lina.
There is a lot of richness that data can give, and as Luis said, it is with any tool that is given to mankind, it is the way it is used really. And it is not the tool's fault if it is not used correctly. So with data, we have a richness that we can either use positively or negatively. It depends on everybody's perspective. And yes, data should be open to citizens, and the analysis of data should be open to citizens, and also the data itself, so that research institutes can build on that. And also a question that I would like to ask Christopher, Christopher showed us that you can do on the Google tool on the canopies, you can make a polygon and see what is happening with the canopy in a certain area of the city. Would we do something like that for transport? Like in this way, because in Athens we are doing a lot of pedestrianization at the moment, and a way to measure the success of the pedestrianization is to see how much it attracts pedestrians.
Yeah.
So if we could compare like what has been happening in this street in 2018 and what is happening in 2022 after it was pedestrianized, it will be a really useful tool for us.
Okay, thank you very much, Eleftheria. Lina, what are your thoughts about this issue of the use of data and transparency?
It's also very political.
I think it is important, as we increase the use of data into our kind of day-to-day operations, we also fortify our system, so building our kind of digital resilience. And yesterday during the plenary session, if you remember, Stella from Thessaloniki actually mentioned how Thessaloniki went under cyber attack. And this is very, very common for many, many cities across the globe. So I think we need at the same time both to safe-proof our the digital systems within the municipality, and also educate the citizens on the use and how they use and the dangers or the ways that their data can be misused and so on. So I think it's a two-way kind of approach.
Thank you very much, Lina. I don't know, Roger, if you would like to complement, and then we can probably jump to another field.
Honestly, I think that decision making always has happened very intransparent, mostly, because it was not based on a transparent an instrument that could transparently present sort of the framework conditions for the decision to happen. So there is an opportunity in it, and Lina hinted at the need to educate people to use it in an appropriate manner. I think that is very, very important to understand how it can be used. I mentioned in my opening, in that platform, one could organize an engagement element. And I think there is a power in it if we did it right. why not having like a carbon budget displayed in the city? And there is a red line and that says, okay, with that investment, with that development, we will run out of our carbon budget. It's a red light, and we see it. And then we need, obviously, to organize a decision whether we can allow for it or not. So there is an opportunity in it, and that can be made transparent by a visualization. And this visual information is a very important, powerful element in decision making.
Perfect, thank you, Olker. I think that you have now touched an important point, which is visualization, okay? Bringing this data, not only for the cities or for the mayor having the wonderful balanced scorecard with the indicators, how it works, no. So me as a citizen, or Margarita or someone as a citizen, where I can get the information on air quality, where I can get the information of the transport service I am getting, where I can get the information, I don't know, of I don't know, the energy certificate of my building, or how is the level of risk that I have in my building. So all of these questions I think is important to think. So I don't know, probably we can reflect a little on the importance of translating this data into visual tools or visual mechanisms to make it accessible to everybody. So I don't know if probably Marcin would like to tell us what is your vision of how important it is to put the data, how can I say, easy accessible to the citizens.
Of course, guys. So we can, at least in my opinion, we can produce any data possible. We can have any document possible, any strategy possible. But if it's not user-friendly, let's say, for example, this is a very scientific analysis, great analysis, very deep, focused on one topic. But if a person can't understand what's in it, then it's useless for us. Also, it's useless for the decision makers because we are not a scientist people, right? We are people on the ground, have some, specified area of interest, but in many cases we're pretty simple people here. And the same story comes with data. For instance, in Warsaw, currently we are working on the new spatial planning studium, so the Bible for the local planning. And they produced, I don't know how many thousand pages of analysis, different trends, ways people commuting and so on, but it is not translated into any, I don't know, infographics or maps or so on. And it should be, but it takes time. It takes resources. It takes a lot of people to be on that. And an initial idea how to cope with that, and it's necessary, I would say, because otherwise we spend money for nothing. At the end, we spend money, but we don't get the product, we don't get the outcomes. And if we would like to be transparent, if you would like to engage our citizens, inhabitants, then they have to understand what's going on, right? So the, let's say, internal consulting teams, analytics oriented on data may help with that visualization. It's a must. I guess it's a must. Otherwise, it's waste of money.
Yeah, I think that, I don't know if Martin or Per Arne from Malmo, that we're also part of this work. What is your experience in this, making this data transparent to citizens? When we were evaluating your city, we went through the transport survey you do, okay? And we found also that how you do these wonderful pictures to show the results of the survey. So how do you approach this issue of sharing the data with your citizens?
Okay, I guess I should answer. Mårten Spanne from City of Malmö. I agree that we actually need to put a lot more effort into making our analysis available for the public, and I think we can do it two ways. We need local people in the cities that can sort of direct the information effort to the public. But we also need new tools, and I think Google can, and other providers of data services can help the cities there. It's not a goal in itself that we do have experts in the city on the data, but we need to give that data to the public. And I would very much like to, I'm an air quality monitoring expert, and I would very much like to have my data being used by the public and by the policymakers, so I can go on researching new things. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you very much. I think that, Per Arne, would you like to complement?
Well, another thing that we do, we have every year day when we present all the data for the environment in Malmö for decision makers, and we do a report that we also try to make understandable for common people to know about the situation in Malmö. So that's an important thing to understand the situation, I think.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I think that municipalities and even the public sector or NGOs, everybody has this problem of sharing the data in an understandable way. I think that that is a challenge. Yes, we have one more question here. Perfect.
Thank you. I'm Diana Georgiou from RWA Consultancy. Maybe it's an idea, I'm not sure if it's a question, but connecting to what Per Arne and Martin were saying regarding the data, to make it usable and also actionable. And the presentation from Copenhagen really stuck in my mind, seeing that map with the red area next to the airport. I would like to see, and maybe this is an idea to Google, that map overlapped with the housing prices.
Yeah.
Is that correlated somehow? I mean, that would be something that for me as a citizen would be very useful, for example. And then maybe seeing from that some actions from the city to maybe marry that somehow, or maybe improve the situation. That would be something that would be very useful for me.
Very good idea. Probably in ICLEI we will take it. but I think that the important thing is here that you mentioned that in order to do the analysis, probably it's you, it can be ICLEI, it can be Google, it can be Urban Digital with Rasmus. The thing is that data has to be available. But when you ask these two sources of data, when we talk about air pollution data, you have that data. When you prices, I think that there's also some information that you can get. So it's then the issue of capacity that we also mentioned it. Who can do it and who can do it. So I think that opens that probably if we can get each other in different city networks or works or projects, probably we can explore that. But it's a very good point. Thanks for sharing. So we have a problem of time. And I think that I really would like to thank our cities and Christopher for connecting, and also Lina, Kaglar, Luis, Eleftheria, Chiara. Thank you for connecting. I think that we are going to continue working on this project and evaluating other sources of data that are there. Thank you very much. Thank you to our panelists here. So before leaving, remember that I asked you that if we really think that data can make a revolution, so we have a final poll, and then we will close the session. So the question is, the final one is, can you see the question on the last question, please?
Here we have it.
Yes. Do you think that we can make a revolutions with data to enhance climate action in cities? Do you really think we can take and make this revolution from our moment of life? Can you raise the hand here? Because you are not answering the app. Here? Can you you think we can make a revolution or not yet? Yes? You can. Perfecto. Perfecto. Yes. Me too. I don't know here. Yeah. Yes, we can. Come on. What do our audience say?
Most of our audience online agree that we can make a revolution.
Perfect. That's so good. So that was the last thing I wanted to say. Thank you very much for all. I hope you enjoyed this session. Also, please, we are going to be here, the cities and the contacts, and we can continue discussing about the data and the future that comes to be more carbon neutral and resilience. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for all.
Thank you.